Welcome back to Viewpoint. So today on social media, I asked what all y'all thought of Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and Mike Lee filibustering popular gun control legislation. And on Facebook, Kim Reinley wrote, "Please let them. This will weed them out as possible candidates for the presidency in 2016. You seem to think Republican voters won't like it, Kim, but Ted, Rand, Mike, if you're watching this, and I know you are, it's current, don't listen to Kim Reinley. Please run in 2016. We comedians are depending on you. Comics shall not live on Chris Christie alone." And if you have a comment for the show, please tweet us at ViewpointCTV or John Fugelsang, or use the hashtag Viewpoint, or post it on our Facebook page. Now here's a chance to play along at home. Think about, if you would, a new possible low for the NRA. Okay, now go one level lower. Now one more, until you find a bar so low that Cheney could trip over it in his underground bunker. And there, you will also find this recording of an NRA robocall that went out this week to the residents of Newtown, Connecticut.
NRA calling from 703-267-1200. Despite an outcry of public opposition, anti-gun legislators are aggressively pursuing numerous proposals that are designed to disarm and punish law-abiding gun owners and sportsmen.
Okay, here's the best part. Not only is that despicable, it's a lie, as no bill in Connecticut or anywhere in the country seeks to disarm any law-abiding gun owner. Take the fox out of your ears. I would like to repeat that number they gave and put it on the screen so all you all can enjoy it. It is 703-267-1200, and that is the number for the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action Grassroots Division. I recommend returning the favor and give them a call. Though I do warn, after numerous attempts today, I only received a message saying all operators were busy, because apparently the NRA doesn't like receiving unwanted calls. Joining me now is my panel of non-experts, including contributor to Forbes.com, the great Rick Unger, editor-in-chief of The Contributor, the luminous Tina Dupuy, and the managing director and host of This Week in Blackness, the formidable Elon James White. Thank you all so much for being on the show tonight. Three of my favorites. I'm so upset at this. Let's get started. Rick, have you ever heard of anything more disgusting than the NRA robocalling people to fight for gun rights and lie about gun legislation in Newtown, Connecticut?
I got to tell you, your producer and I actually spent time trying to come up with some way to make this a conversation. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It is the most insensitive thing I think I may have ever heard of in my life. Mm-hmm. It's that insane. We were trying everything. How do you make this a conversation? There's no way.
No, you should see the last segment about the innocent guy on death row in Memphis. There's a few more inconsiderate things that could be done. Elon?
I think you guys are just overreacting here.
Oh, are we now?
I don't understand why you're upset. I mean, why wouldn't you call about gun rights where people lost a bunch of children to gun violence? I think you guys need to really get out of your liberal bubble and realize real life here.
Indeed. Tina, I want to run this by you because as if the act wasn't bad enough, the NRA refused to apologize. They released a statement that said the National Rifle Association has members, contributors, and supporters in Connecticut who expect us to do our jobs and keep them abreast of developments on the legislative front in their state, even if it's made up. We provide the same service for our members and supporters all around the country. So, Tina, is being completely unsympathetic zealots part of the NRA's job description?
Duh. Yes, but here's what I think is getting lost in the greater conversation about gun control.
Please.
When it comes to gun control and to gun laws, sewage seeks its own level, right? So we go to the places with the fewest amount of regulations. For example, Washington, D.C. has a lot of gun violence within Washington, D.C. They have very strict gun control laws there, but they're very close to Virginia. Same thing in Chicago, where Cook County has very loose gun laws, but the city of Chicago has very strict gun laws. So what happens in Connecticut really means nothing when you are in the tri-state area. And the weapons used in the Newtown shooting were from New Jersey.
Yes.
But fortunately, New York's getting
right. So
New York gets tons of Virginia guns.
Exactly.
In spite of our laws. Now, Slate and the Twitter handle @GunDeaths has been keeping track of every gun-related death since the Newtown tragedy, and that number, in 3 months, mind you, is now up to 3,029. I'll repeat that: 3,029 of your American citizens killed in gun violence. Yet Congress is struggling to get something as simple and popular, even among NRA members, as background checks passed. Rick, what's the disconnect here?
It's simple. The NRA is the most effective lobby that we have in this country for two reasons. They have the inside game, which is the money that they spend, although it's not as much as people think. It's the outside game. They can mobilize their troops better than any lobbying force in America, and that is what the politicians are afraid of, and that's the disconnect.
He's right. Elon, can you imagine like the head of the AFL-CIO being able to draw a press conference and have the media show up if he called it?
No, and if you remember when Wayne LaPierre threw his press conference, it was a bit ridiculous, if we can say that. But the situation here is this. When you look at how they're actually laying this all out, it's about how the framing will happen. And so basically they're making sure that when you say that you are against this, that you are against America, that you are against the very Constitution. So it's very hard to get people to say that because that's how they're framing it. They're not framing it from the position of this will save lives. This will actually help our country. They're framing it about, are you pro-America or against America?
Exactly.
And that's it.
And you know what? God help the senator who brings up what the first half of the Second Amendment says about their well-regulated militias, because that guy's going to get primaried. Now, speaking of disconnects, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and Mike Lee of Utah suggested today that they may consider filibustering any new gun control legislation. Is it safe to assume, Tina, that they are at peace with the amount of gun violence in this country?
Absolutely. We have the highest amount of civilian gun ownership in the world, the highest amount. So therefore, if the NRA is right, Rand Paul's right, then we should be the safest country in the world.
Indeed.
But we're not. We're the 14th highest in gun deaths, even higher when it comes to just gun-related injuries. So no, I mean, this is really an affront to the victims, but not just the children that we saw that died at Newtown, but the 3,000 since then and the 3,000 before then.
Indeed, and the 3,000 to come. But I want to move on because we only have a minute left, and I want to get to this story because switching gears, North Dakota's Republican Governor Jack Dalrymple signed into law the most restrictive abortion bill in the country, including one that forbids abortions if a fetal heartbeat is detectable, which can occur as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy before many women even know they're pregnant. Did North Dakota just win the race to the bottom in regards to women's health? And Elon, you're a man, I'll go to you.
I know when I think about abortion. No. Here's the thing. Am I shocked? Like I can't pretend that I am. This sounds about right because they've been constantly coming up with ways to somehow restrict women in better and bigger ways. And like I believe they only have one abortion clinic in the entire.
Exactly.
And so in that one place, it's like, hey, for you even to do anything, let's make it really super hard because you know why? We really don't particularly care for vagina Americans, and so we're going to just do whatever we can to make it uncomfortable for them.
Tina, is it possible? I know what you're going to say, but let me throw this at you.
No, you don't know what I'm going to say.
Oh, well,
Tom.
I want to.
No,
I want to.
My body, my mind. You don't know what
I had no idea you were going to say that. Okay, here's the thing. Is it possible that these guys know this is going to be tied up in appeals for years to come? And they just did it for votes, right?
They're trolling to get to the Supreme Court. They ultimately want to overturn Roe versus Wade. They're trolling to get to the Supreme Court. Before that happens, they want a lot of women to die from unsafe abortions.
I have to let Rick get in here.
They got a really big problem, though. This, not only does this particular law violate Roe v. Wade, which we've seen lots of those, this one violates 3 or 4 cases that have come since. This is so unconstitutional that if I were a citizen of that state, I'd be going bonkers that they're going to waste my money pursuing this case. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, with only one abortion clinic, as Elon pointed out, in the whole state, what exactly are they worried about? It's all about pandering to the right to get votes. They know they're not going to be restricting that much anyway. And as I pointed out, how many women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks into the pregnancy?
Many.
Well, this is just like in Arizona, where you 2 weeks before conception, you're actually pregnant.
Well, and this brings up, and this ties into gay marriage a bit, and we're almost out of time. But you know, I'll put out the point that a lot of Republicans, and I'll say this, don't care about abortion or gay marriage or illegal immigration as long as they can use it as a fundraising tool. Correct? Because if you're owned by Wall Street,
galvanizes the base.
Wall Street's fine with those 3 things. Is that fair to say, Elon?
Yeah, it's it's really sad because that's basically what they're in the midst of all their rebranding. Apparently, they're rebranding themselves to be the same bigoted folks that they were beforehand.
Actually, the really accurate statement is they don't care about it until it happens to their family.
Exactly.
You know, Senator Portman's getting all these hurrahs, and I'm glad he changed his mind. But you know what? Why did it take his son for him to do it? What about my son if that were the case?
Oh, you're going to want to see what comes up next.
But that's when Mitt Romney was pro-choice. When a friend of the family had died from an illegal abortion, he was pro-choice until that was 30 years later, and then suddenly
and gave thousands to Planned Parenthood, but he still wants to defund. My panel, who are all brilliant and much smarter than me, thank you all, will stay with me after the break when we'll talk about how the 2 parties took different paths on their evolution on gay marriage. Don't go away. While I've still got my panel here, I'd like to ask you guys one more question about political evolution. We've heard about this in marriage equality. Is there any issue now that you think politicians are too afraid to support that they'll regret later on? Rick Unger?
Well, you know, maybe it's the day that we're having today, but I think you're looking at it. And I think you're seeing all the politicians climbing on the ship, as you've seen the Democrats do. I don't know if they deserve points for it. They're coming to the party pretty late.
Indeed.
But this will be an issue. Look, we see the demo shift. If you're under 30, 80% of you are for, you're pro-gay marriage.
And that's why Mike Huckabee is still against it, because he's not trying to raise money off people under 30.
Politicians going to get their butt whipped if they don't get on board.
Tina Dupuy.
Speaking of people under 30, I think that student loan reform and for-profit colleges is something that years from now they're going to regret not being ahead of, because it's a bubble that's about to burst, and it's going to be disastrous, especially for kids
I'd
under
love
30.
to start a student loan jubilee movement.
Absolutely.
Elon James White?
I'm going to go with bestiality. Oh! Because obviously that's where gay marriage leads to, and so, I mean, if you want to be in front of this, this more liberal country, you're probably going to need to be in front of that.
Well, the best thing about letting a man marry an animal is those guys will never reproduce.